All right, today's video, it's all about driving the big C word, consistency. How to become more consistent hitting your tee shots. If you haven't already done so, make sure you click on the subscribe button. We're giving away free swag every week to the best comment of the week, but you gotta be a subscriber to win. Shaun, how can we be more consistent? What's number one?
Number one is consistent setup, right?
Love it.
So
yeah.
A lot of times I see golfers on the range hitting balls. I'll drive by and just be shaking my head when I'm driving by the range. Everybody's got their driver out. One shot, they got the ball forward. One shot, they got the ball back. One time they're closed body alignment. The next time they're open. One time they're farther away. One time they're closer. One time they got the ball teed way up. One time they got it down. How do you expect to be consistent when nothing is consistent about the way you set up?
Well, they do a good job of hitting grass.
Yeah, and if you can see this
acres,
driving range,
right?
It's a false sense of security if you end up in this grass because it's the widest fairway. You've never seen a fairway that
So what you're going to see the best players in the world do almost every time they practice is they're going to put a stick down on their target line, right? So that's going to let you know that you're swinging somewhere to where you're trying to hit it. And then they're going to put a stick down 90 degrees to that, so they got to create a cross here.
You got the
so you got the consistent ball position.
Yeah, so, and there's some leeway here where you want to play it, but we've got some other videos. You want to play it somewhere near your left heel. Right?
Start there. It's a good
start there,
but good starting point.
Absolutely. Feet, try to get them about the same distance apart every time. You don't have to be perfect by the half inch, but just outside shoulder width. Good balance in the feet. But the ball position, to me, is probably the main one that gets off track the fastest, and the alignment. So if that changes every time, the swing is probably going to be different every time. The ball's going to do something different every time.
We could take Adam Scott's swing and set him up to where we see a lot of amateurs set up, and it won't look like Adam Scott's swing.
Yeah.
Right? Because you're always going to try to make a manipulation or compensation to send the ball to target. If you're set up over here at this fourth tree, trying to hit it to this first tree, you've got to do something goofy to try to pull that off. So it's better to train your eye to see what these railroad tracks or to see what these alignments, however you want to call it, to train the eye to become really consistent with the setup. Because again, out on the course, if these tee boxes are round and they're not always aiming down the fairway, you've really got to be able to rely on your instincts for setup.
Yeah, so get used to having basically squarish body position compared to the stick you have on the ground that's kind of parallel to your target, right? At the target. Feet, knees, hips, shoulders, eyes, somewhere in that range. You don't want to have any big open or closed positioning with the body, I would say.
Yeah, it's a great idea to get, so we've got our alignment rod down there to have the hips kind of pointing along those areas. Forearms.
Yeah, because I see a lot of high right forearms.
Yes, absolutely.
Forearms.
Shoulders. We all need to be really close to the same ballpark, and that's going to give us the best starting point for the golf swing to go where we're trying to hit it.
Yeah, and one last point about the setup, just get the butt of the club somewhere near your belt buckle. I see a lot of people, they get really uncomfortable when the ball's forward and they start trying to line the grip up.
It really opens up our shoulders.
Absolutely. So get comfortable having the grip back. Now, it's going to look funny at first. It's going to feel like the driver's tipped up in the air, but remember, we're not going to be there at impact.
That's right.
We're forward to get that shaft lined up again, kind of vertically to deliver the face.
So do that again, because you made up a great point. So we're used to a 7-iron being somewhere kind of back in here, middle of the stance, right?
It's totally different look to the grip.
So it's easy. Everybody can kind of grasp square shoulders from there. Now, if you do nothing but rotate the shoulders there, so we see a lot of golfers with wide open shoulders just because the ball's forward.
So get the ball forward, crank your body back to square. And what you have to do most of the time is let the grip almost feel like the driver's backwards a little. Like the grip's going to feel back a little to you. If you looked at it from face on, it's probably more of a perception thing. But it's going to look different than if you try to do this, which a lot of guys do, and it opens them up.
What this does, so they got the shoulders open. Now this opens the club face. We just opened it about 5 degrees. When you get that mid-body hands, it actually closes the club face. And what do most golfers need at impact?
More closed.
More closure. So it's really going to help you. Yeah, it's really going to help you kind of dynamically set up that club face, that hedge resisting that closing. IMOI. So it's really going to give you a sense and help you just with the setup to close it. Now, let's go on to number 2.
Okay, Mike, let's talk about consistency key number 2 with a driver. Select the shot shape and hit it 99.99% of the time, would you say, with the driver?
I would say so, yeah.
What do you see the best players in the world doing when you're out on the road with some of your guys?
So it's rare when you don't find a pro who can shape it both ways, but most often they're going to be really grinding, really honing, really trying to perfect one shot shape. And the late Bruce Litsky was no better example of that. He was always going to make his driver move left to right, a cut for him. And it's a great way, especially those of us who have really limited time to practice. We get on there and we, like the club that I work at, Cartersville Country Club, first hole is a big sweeping draw. And we'll see the guy, he'll hit left to right, and then gets over there, and all of a sudden on the very first hole, he's going to be a big sweeping drawer, and it usually blocks it over there towards the road somewhere. You've got to really be comfortable with the shot that's easiest for you to play and get good at playing that shot.
Absolutely.
And we're talking about consistency in driving. The inconsistent part of driving is always the double cross. Right? So if I set up for a cut and I double cross it, it goes this way. Now, if half of my shots I try to cut, half of my shots I try to draw, now I have two double crosses in play.
Absolutely.
And that's a great way to run up your score with two double crosses.
Yeah, so pick one shot shape. And you know, the great thing about the tee box is it's about the only place that's the same as a driving range.
Flat usually.
Flat and is on a tee.
And you can put the ball in the hands.
So you can set up the same way and practice hitting the same exact shot over and over again on the driving range. And that's one thing that will transfer to the golf course.
That's exactly right.
The iron's a little different because you never really have a flat lie once you get, perfectly flat lie. So that's one thing that we like about picking the same shot shape. You can practice that on the range over and over again. Now, the other good thing about that, it helps you select your targets.
That's right.
So you can say, okay, and Nicholas said it years ago, he likes to eliminate the left side of the golf course. And if you're a draw of the ball, maybe you could eliminate the right side. It takes one side out of play, simplifies your thought process because you're not always trying to work the ball one way or the other.
Right.
You know it's going to peel right. You aim down the left side. I mean, David Toms did it for years, cut the ball, 99.9% of the time, had a pretty good career doing it. So pick a shot shape and stick with it. That's key number 2.
Yeah, and I think guys like Scott Fawcett who've actually run the numbers on that, so you drastically will improve your driving just by getting used to trying to move the ball one way, and you start to play in your cone, right? Drivers are shotguns, they're not rifles.
That's right.
So you're going to have misses both directions, but it's how often can you hit the right shot relative to that miss. And if you start decreasing those misses, you will drive the ball better. And again, it starts with picking one shot and getting really good at it.
So we covered consistent setup, pick a shot shape.
All right, and the third tip now for consistent driving is something that, again, we're fortunate to learn from some of the best players in the world. And this one, there's no exception here. This is a great idea. We get the driver in our hands a lot of times. Let's say there's water right, out of bounds to left. The heart rate starts going up. Everything starts to move faster than normal, right? And we run out of time, so to speak, in the golf swing. We want to hurry up and get it over with. We actually got to slow down to make the driver go faster and to be more consistent. What does David say about that?
So I've been real fortunate. We had our 5-year anniversary at the Golf Academy. I've been around David Toms now for 5 years. And I've been around a lot of ball strikers, and he's got to be top I've ever seen in my life. It's phenomenal. So one thing I hear him talk a lot about in clinics, and even with his own, when he's kind of talking about his own game, is, if you had 2 clubs here, if you had a sand wedge and you had a driver, basically in the simplified form, the golf swing is a circle, right? So if you're going to make a circle with the wedge, that's a lot smaller and takes a lot less time than the circle with the driver should. So the key takeaway from that is a lot of times you see people grab a driver and they don't give it even as much time as the wedge because they're in a hurry to hit it and the nerves
they're
are
trying
up.
to make it go faster, all those things, sure.
So David is always talking about give the driver time to swing. And the slower he feels like he makes the transition, it feels like he can get actually more club head speed down by the ball. So instead of rushing it, think about giving the driver a full swing, right? Don't rush to change of direction, so you give this time to swing back, and now you've got more time to make your shift on the downswing, right? To speed up the arms. And also that consistent rhythm and tempo. You see a lot of odd swings over the years, win on the PGA Tour. One thing they had in common was a fairly consistent kind of rhythm to their swing.
And there's nothing better when you get a chance, hopefully everyone will get a chance to go to visit a pro tournament. spend some time on the driving range. You are going to see that buttery smooth, unhurried, smooth transition, and you're going to see the ball rocket off. It's that allowing that sequence, right? We talked about in other videos, that sequence to occur rather than rushing it, get it disorganized, and then you're left with a bunch of compensations down there.
I remember when I was younger, my dad would take me to Bay Hill. We'd fly down from Maine, go to the Bay Hill tournament. And I'd bring my clubs down, and we were coming out of the winter, so I'd be struggling. We would go to Bay Hill, and I would just sit at the driving range a lot of times and watch players. I didn't realize it at the time, but after we would go out and play maybe that afternoon, and I would hit the ball so much better. I think you kind of internally get that rhythm and tempo in your system, and that unhurried motion. You get the sequence correct, and all of a sudden you start playing good again without thinking anything but that, or feeling that. So third key, good rhythm and tempo. It's kind of vague, but if you just feel that you let the backswing finish and unhurry the transition, you're going to see a big improvement with strike in the middle of the face, and you get more distance because hitting the middle of the face equates to more ball speed.
And acceleration is gradual. We can't reach swing speed up at the top, so we've got to give it time to build, and the sequencing of that really helps it to show up down here by the golf ball. So those are the 3 keys to consistent driving. We've got setup, pick a shot shape, fall in love with it, own it, don't be ashamed of it. Doesn't have to be a hook or a draw, it can be a fade. We're both in the Hall of Fame. And then give yourself time to make the driver swing that you want to make to help you hit more fairways.